Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of HSP TV. I am your host, Barbara, and today I am joined by the wonderful Cheryl, who is the healing dancer. And we will be talking about how to go from people pleasing to authentic self love. And I know that this is going to be a topic that a lot of you are recognizing because I know a lot of you, like me before, used to be or are an avid people pleaser, and you probably want to stop. So, today, this is going to be our topic, and we would like to invite you into our talk. And I am very, very happy that you are here, Cheryl, to talk about this topic with me today.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here too. Thank you so much, Barbara.
You're welcome. So, how did we end up with this topic?
Well, let's see. Many years ago, I literally woke up one day and was like, I'm a people pleaser, like an avid people pleaser. I didn't even know I was. I literally woke up to that and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. It was too stressful, as a people pleaser. You are constantly saying yes to everything. You don't want to disappoint anybody. And it just becomes very overwhelming and stressful. And I was to the point where I was like, well, who's pleasing me?
Mm-hmm.
I'm so focused on everybody else. No one cares about me. Like,
Yeah.
so it started to be my mission to figure out how not to be a people pleaser anymore, because that's what I was taught, right? It started in childhood. So I was taught to be a people pleaser.
Mhm.
And I thought that that was who I was, and I was like, oh, even when people would question my people-pleasing tendencies, it was like, well, that's just who I am. I'm just, I'm a great person. I love to please everybody. I want to make everybody happy. It's a good way to be. No,
Mm-hmm.
no,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not.
No, I
It's
get
okay
it.
to like want to love on people and, and yes, and do things for people, but not to the extent of
Yeah.
hurting yourself. So,
Yes, no, I can relate to what you're saying. I haven't been taught to be a people pleaser. For me, it came because I was so different from everybody else, and people were not accepting me. And I was bullied a lot in school. I was also bullied a lot at home. So I felt I needed to change in order for people to finally start liking me and for wanting to be my friend. So I started to people please in order to fit in order to get people to like me, in order to find friends. And that ended me up feeling eventually like a doormat where everybody just walked over and everybody just took. And the first time I needed something, nobody was home.
mm,
That was a harsh lesson.
yes. Yes. Yeah, no, I hear you on that. That definitely how I felt too, but with a different situation, it was just feeling like there was no one there to talk to about it, feeling like there was no one there to help me through whatever I was going through. So
Yes.
yeah, it's
Exactly.
it's not a fun place to be in.
No, so we already talked about two different ways in which people start people pleasing. Are there more ways or more, yeah, ways, I think is the best word, that you saw for people to start people pleasing?
I'm sure there are, but it's mostly what I have found and people that I have talked to over the years too about people pleasing is that it either comes from more of like a childhood upbringing or something that happened,
Mhm.
when you were a child. Then for you, it was something that happened back then too, and when you were in school and being bullied and like it does happen in our earlier years, and it has a lot to do like I think the similarity there is that it's wanting to be accepted,
Yes.
whether it's with your family or with friends or anybody, like that's really the similarities what that comes into play as we're growing up is like, okay, I just want to be accepted. I want to be loved, so then here comes the people pleasing.
Yes, exactly. And I think then there's also an active teaching and an passive teaching. What I mean by that is an active teaching is when your parents actively teach you about the way you're supposed to behave
Yeah.
or the way you're supposed to act. And the passive way is that you just learn by seeing. And you see your mother always pleasing everybody, and then you model yourself to your mother or your father or someone that was a role model. So passive learning, passive teaching,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, very much. I agree with that. Yeah, that was a little bit for me too, was like just seeing, seeing the women in my life, not standing up for themselves or agreeing to everything in order to please other people in the family, Um, and it also comes into play where I was, I was told maybe by grandparents or great grandparents, I can't remember who it was right now, but like to keep quiet and just, be a good girl, just be a good
Mm,
girl, don't speak up, just do as you're told
yes.
for that.
Yes, and it's sometimes also used. I just had it in the top of my mind. Let me see if I can get it back. Well, to not rock the boat, and
Yeah.
also to keep the peace. That was it. To keep
Yes.
the peace, which is similar to not rocking the boat. Just keep your mouth shut, and then things will be easier. Or just be like everybody else, and things will be easier. Or make sure you find a good husband that takes care of you, and you're golden. And trying to please that good husband so that he will take you. Things like that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Everything you just said. Yeah. It all resonates with me and my upbringing. And I've heard all of that.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there is something that you're gaining from people pleasing. We already talked a little bit about it. It could be being accepted, it could be being loved, it could be finding a partner. What other benefits are there from people pleasing?
Um, Having more friends, you feel like you're surrounded by more people, what you think that are your friends. And feeling like, everybody, just that feeling of, I remember just feeling so like everybody likes me, like it was like it's wanting that confirmation,
Hmm.
that from people, that confirmation that you are a good person, you know, you are an amazing person or whatever the kind of person that you do want to be. Um, but yeah, that's
So I'm hearing validation, personal validation. You matter. You are important to me. You're a good girl. You're worth knowing. You're worth befriending. You're worth loving.
yeah.
Validation in a big sense, but also fitting in, being a part of something,
Mhm.
or not being singled out.
Right. Yes. Yeah, not being singled out and um like dangled in front of as bait or um yeah, like I can't think of the word singled out, um like paraded around for something.
Mhm.
That makes sense.
Showcased or something.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And it's human nature to want to belong, to want to be a part of it. And I saw this amplified through, especially here in Europe, through the Second World War, because the Nazis went after everybody who was different.
Mm-hmm.
The Jews in this case specifically, but also other people who were different. So my mother, for instance, was raised by my grandmother to be exactly like everybody else because she truly believed that life would be easier if she just conformed
Right.
and acted like everybody else and trying to fit in. And for my mother, because she felt wanting to be a part of that, that turned into people pleasing.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I could see how that would definitely play a huge part into turning into people pleasing. That's almost, that's where like the trauma,
Yes,
It
and I can
comes
imagine that in the United States it might be a little bit different because the war wasn't actually fought in the United States. It was fought in Europe, and of course the United States were a part of it, but it's a more further away than when it's actually at your doorstep.
right. Yeah. Gosh,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah. And I think a lot has to do with women with people pleasing too. I mean, obviously I feel like it's bigger in women. Um, is society, just how society portrays women to be in life, and how we see on TV or wherever out there in society, how it portrays to us how we are supposed to be, how we should act.
For sure, and I think that also Black people experience this because for the longest time we didn't have any say in anything.
Right.
So also Black people were used as servants, so they also needed to please their master in order to not get punishment or to get food. So that's sort of ingrained into society. And with women, it was a lot the same. And we didn't used to have voting rights. We didn't have the rights to our own job. We were dependent on our husband. The only right we had was to bear children. So we needed to please our husbands in order to stay alive. So from long, long, long ago, this has been a pattern for
Yes.
a lot of groups.
Yes, yes. And even with you talking about that, so I've done some past life regression in the past where I had it done to me. Like I don't do past life regression, but that it brought up those past lives of um I've had so many where I've had to stay silent, where I've had to do stuff to please my husband. There's so much people pleasing from like centuries,
Yes.
ancestors. Like it was crazy how like all of that came up and it was like, oh, okay. So that's what I meant to break in this lifetime.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you talked about there was this moment where I suddenly realized I'm an avid people pleaser, and I also realized I don't want this anymore. I want this to stop. But what led up to that moment? How did you get to that moment where you realized these things?
Um, what kept coming up for me is I started realizing that I have said yes to like so many things. People would ask me to like help with this, do this. And it was to the point where I didn't have time to do anything. Like it was just like, okay, what do I do now? Like I'm gonna have to say no to something or like let somebody down because I literally physically could not do all the things that I had agreed to doing. So I was feeling overwhelmed and stressed with the fact that I was going to have to disappoint somebody or a few people. Um, and then I had to, and that I had to face my fear. And then I did disappoint people. And I was like, well, this isn't fair. Like, I'm the person that steps up and does everything, and you're going to get mad at me for one time saying no.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, it wasn't as simple back then for me to like say that how I said it now. I
Hmm.
was literally, like it killed me inside to
Hmm.
know that I had upset somebody or disappointed somebody. But it was something that continued to happen. And then eventually I was literally like, I think physically ill
Hmm.
from the amount of stress that I was under for people pleasing. And then people would start pointing out to me like the things that I was doing. Like I was like bending over backwards at work, with my husband, but then he was my boyfriend, and we were living together, and I was doing all the things to like, make him happy, making sure I was making dinner and bending over backwards for him and then for my parents. And it was literally like an explosion in my head, like, oh my gosh, I can't do this anymore. Like there's something that's not right about this, like how can I function for the rest of my life
Yes.
doing that? So it was like almost like a realization.
I'm very happy that you're sharing this because this is, I think, important for people to hear. It's not a moment, it's a process. It's like a pressure pot that gets getting more pressure and 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 more pressure until poof, the
Right.
top pops off. Because you need to indeed forcefully almost be pushed out of it because of the nature of the people pleasing and the fact that you are doing this from probably a very young age makes it that something heavy or intense needs to happen to get you to stop doing this, to break this pattern, because otherwise you will continue to do this. And for me, indeed, it started with the first time I needed my friends and they weren't home. That was very disappointing. And I thought, but I'm always there for you. And now when I asked this simple thing, you cannot be there for me. That was like, hmm. And then more and more people were doing the same thing. And I was like, oh, maybe that was also the first time I realized that there was an option. You could say no because other people had no issue with saying no to me, and I never said no to anybody else. So it starts with that seed that then's been planted, and then you continue to be who you are, doing what you've always been doing. And the more times you run into, I call it a wall like this, where you either cannot get the help you want when you need someone, or when you finally have mustered up all your courage to say no, feeling really shitty and really bad about it, and like you're letting people down, and almost the end of the world kind of tragic feeling inside. And then they're like, we're done being friends if you don't do this, or something in that area, right? And then you're like, but I've done this for years and years and years and years and years and years for you. And I really, 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 really cannot do this. And now we're no friends anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, what the hell?
Right?
Like, yeah, as a people pleaser, you feel like you do all of it's kind of like you do build expectations for yourself as a people pleaser, where it's like you expect other people to treat you the same.
Yeah, it's sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And that is what makes it so hard to break out of it, because your surroundings, the people in your life, they expect you to always say yes and to please them in any way. And they don't even consciously think about it. They just count on it. That has
Right.
been your mode for forever, and that needs to stay your mode. And when you start changing, and when you start standing up for yourself, and one of the key things in this that really helped me was the realization that when I say no to someone else, I am saying yes to me, and I am allowed to say yes to me, because if I don't think about myself, nobody else sure as hell will think about myself. So I need to put myself first, not in a selfish way, not in a narcissistic way, but if I don't make sure that my cup stays full, I cannot pour from an empty cup. I cannot be there for other people. If I am lying, bleeding, broken, and exhausted on the floor with no capacity for anything,
Hmm.
and you need to sort of be built up or pressured into a realization similar to that one. And then when you start changing, when you are saying no to others, and because you want to say yes to yourself, because you feel like, under other circumstances, I would have loved to go clubbing with you girls, but I am just beyond tired, and the only thing I can think about is hot shower bed. So I'm canceling for this evening. And if they then cannot handle that, we need to learn to be okay with that. And that's very difficult for a people pleaser, because we want to please people,
Right.
and they're
Right.
not pleased.
Right. Yeah. So that is definitely the key with most people pleasers. Our biggest issue or challenge is being okay with disappointing others or with
Yeah.
people being mad at you. And that is definitely where self-love comes in, is
Mhm.
learning to be okay with yourself first and
Yes.
foremost, and then you can start easing that pain or tension that comes along when someone is disappointed in you, when someone is mad at you for saying no. But also what comes along with that is practicing it. So practicing makes better. I don't like to say practicing makes perfect, because none of us are perfect, but practicing makes it better. So the more that we can practice saying no, the easier it gets.
Yes, because we indeed ventured in the territory of self-love, because when you take care of yourself first so that your cup is full, so that you then can be there for other people, that is also already self-love. And saying to the girls, under other circumstances, I would love to go clubbing, but right now, shower, hot shower, warm bed, and lights out, and I'll ask me again next time. If you have friends that are worth calling friends, then they would say, I totally get it. Enjoy your evening. I hope you sleep really well, and I will talk to you later this week. Hug or something, right?
Right.
You will be supportive. You will be okay. And I want to warn the people that are listening here today, because when you start turning away from this people pleasing, chances are very high that you're going to lose people in your life. And there's even a big chance that you might end up being alone. So be warned before, because that is usually what happens. Because the people who take advantage of our people pleasing, they do not want you to change. They want you to stay pleasing them because they like it when you please them, and they don't like it when you stop pleasing them. So there will be resistance to the point where they walk away, because you are no longer manipulable, and you're no longer doing their bidding, and you're no longer kissing their heels or kissing their boots, and doing anything you can to make their life better while being miserable yourself. So a lot of people are scared of stopping pleasing people because they are scared of ending up alone.
Right. Yes. Yeah. That is excuse me. It's one of the biggest fears. That was also one of my biggest fears, was losing people. And like you said, it definitely comes along with the territory. Now, the people that I was most scared to lose, I, thank goodness, did not lose them. Like my husband, for instance, at the time, I literally told him, I was like, I the day that I was like, I'm a people pleaser and I don't want to do it anymore. He's like, I know you are. And I think he even said to me at the time, like, like as a people pleaser, people take advantage of you. And he's like, and I probably do that because like I subconsciously know that I can.
Yes.
But, all you have to do is like, now that you want to change this about yourself, this is where boundaries start coming in, right? You have to learn what boundaries are and how to set them with people. So, I was lucky enough that he kind of understood where I was coming from and how I didn't want to do this anymore and that things between us would be changing,
Yeah.
at least a little bit. um, but that also helped me to then change my relationship, like with my parents or with my family members. And I did end up losing some friends because I did have, and that's again where self-love came in, where I started on the journey before setting boundaries. I learned more about what self-love is and how to love myself and give myself those things that I was wanting from other people by people pleasing, right? So I wanted the love, I wanted to be liked, I wanted the support, I wanted all of this. And then I realized that I have to give that stuff to myself first.
Exactly. How can
That's
other
what I need
people
to give
love you if you
myself.
don't love you? Yeah.
Right. And then I'm the one that needs to please myself and be happy with myself. Um, and
Yes.
make decisions based off of what I want, not what other people want. So, but I mean, that was a process. That was definitely a journey too, because when you're a people pleaser, you forget who you are.
Yes, you need to rediscover who you are, and boundary setting is definitely a big part of self-love as well.
Yes.
But before you can set your boundaries, you first need to discover what the hell are my boundaries.
Right. Yeah.
And when you move so far away from yourself, and that's usually what tends to happen when you're an avid people pleaser. When I look at my relationship at the time, I molded myself to him. His hobbies became my hobbies, to a point that when we split up, he was not so supportive. In fact, he asked me to move out at the end of the week after a normal night, completely out of the blue. So that was also earth shocking, but
Yeah.
he was not supportive in the change at all, and he wanted me to stay the same like I had always been. And when we broke up, I thought, what were my hobbies before I knew you? What were the things that I liked doing? And I realized that it already started happening before I even knew him. It already happened in my home situation, with when growing up in the house where I grew up, where you were still trying to please other people and also never learned how to set boundaries, probably because my mother has never learned how to set boundaries.
Right.
So it's all connected to each other. So in order to be able to set boundaries, you need to figure out what your boundaries are. And in order to love yourself, you need to figure out, who am I?
Hmm. Yes. Yeah, exactly. That plays a really big role in learning to love yourself and to set boundaries. You need to rediscover what your wants are, what your desires are, what are the things that you enjoy, what makes you happy, you know? And when
Yeah,
I say what makes you happy, it's not who makes you happy,
no,
what makes you happy, you know?
yes.
Um, so discovering that joy again for life and then doing those things, right? Like
Yeah.
making sure you implement those things. And like self-love is not just going to get your nails done or your hair done. It's definitely part of it. It's part of self-care.
Mhm.
Um, but it's really like doing that inner healing work and figuring out who you are and then implementing those things and doing the things that you love for yourself. Starting there where you're just doing it for yourself only.
Yes. Yes, but it's also where you we were talking before we started recording about that I had been sick, and of course I had been I ended up being sick for at least 3 weeks, and I was so sick that I couldn't work. So loving yourself, self-love, is also canceling your appointments, not trying your best to show up for everything and let the show continue, but taking care of yourself, loving yourself enough to recognize, okay, I need to completely focus on myself. I can hardly sleep at night. I have trouble breathing. I cannot focus. So I'm canceling all my appointments for the rest of the day, even though that might be disappointing people, even though there was one person I had already canceled one of her sessions before because I was also sick then. And there were a couple of months in between. So, oh no, I had a migraine then. So different type of sick. But and I felt really bad when I saw her on my calendar, and I thought, yeah, I'm really sorry, but you deserve someone who can focus, someone who's there 200%, who can really give you a good session, good value for your money, and I cannot be that person right now.
Yeah, no, that's super important. Like as, you know, a coach or a healer or whatever, when you're doing your sessions like that, if you are not okay to do it yourself, like if you're feeling under the weather or you're even having like an emotional breakdown or whatever it is that you're going through, it's important to make sure that you're taking care of yourself first. And if that means canceling on people, then that's what it is, you know? You can't keep pushing yourself to go above and beyond, then you're falling right back into the people. Yeah.
As self-love has a lot of different facets. It's also putting good and healthy food in yourself, making sure that you sleep enough at night. But it's also, handling your funds. When I started out, and that's the way I've been raised, I paid all my bills, but then there was nothing left for me to buy new clothes. Not that I'll buy a lot of new clothes, but every now and then you need something new. There was never any money. Every now and then I would love to have a massage. There was never any money. Every now and then I would love to have my hair cut. There was never any money. So it's also paying yourself first, for instance, from the
Yeah.
money that comes in. And it's a small percentage of everything that I earn. I pay myself first so that I have these funds to go out to dinner when I feel like it, or to buy something that I need, or to gift myself something else, or I hadn't taken a holiday in forever in that period, and now I can use that money also maybe to save for a more expensive holiday or whatever it is that I want, because I pay myself first, which is also a form of self-love.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, making sure that you pay attention to that. Yeah, it's paying yourself first, putting even like having like a little fun that you can put aside, even if, you know, if you work a corporate job, like I do, taking like $5 or $10 a paycheck and just like putting that in like your self-love bank, you know, as I call it. That's my savings, putting at least a little bit aside so you can like go and buy yourself that latte in the beginning, or go buy that shirt or that pair of shoes. Those are the things that make us even feel better about ourselves. Like, yeah, we might not necessarily need that, but come on, like I love putting on makeup because I just feel better, you know, or like putting on that pretty dress because I just feel better. I feel like more
Yes.
myself, you know.
Should be able to do that. And somewhere along the lines, our society has taught us that if you don't struggle for it, if you don't bend over backward, if you don't suffer for it, it's not worth having, or you're not doing it right. It
Right.
needs to be difficult to attain, and you need to struggle and to work really hard. And that goes against self-love. Self-love is also making sure that you laugh a lot, that you have a lot of fun, that you enjoy your days, that you love getting out of bed in the morning because there's a new day. And so many of us don't feel that type of joy. And that means that you are not taking enough care of yourself. You are not making sure that there is something to love about in a good way for yourself.
Right. Yeah. It's making sure that you're taking care of yourself always. I know that that's such a it's a hard concept too.
And that's also something
Mhm.
that has to grow, right? That you will not be able to do that perfectly. If you decide today, it will not be perfect by tomorrow. Not any means. It's a journey, and it's directly tied into your healing journey and your self-discovery journey. All of that is connected with each other, and you need to discover what the patterns are that are playing within you, the automated programs that are running within you, the paradigms that you're thinking, the limiting beliefs that are there that cause your behavior to be this way, and you need to dismantle them before you can become somebody else or become yourself. Because we talked about authentic self-love, and
Yeah.
authentic just means that you're your real self, not what society expects you to be, not what you think other people want you to be, not the ideal version of a woman that you might have in your head, but just you.
Yeah.
And that is a journey to discover who you are really in your core. That is a journey. And the more you discover who you are at your core, the more authentic you will become, but also the better you will take care of yourself because your self love will grow exponentially.
Yes, yes. Yeah, it's definitely a journey and something it's, you know, like that healing journey, it's a constant journey. It's never ending. So making sure that you also just have a lot of compassion and grace
Mhm.
toward yourself, you know, on this journey. Because it's not an easy journey,
No.
but you know, it can be easier the easier you are on yourself, you know. And then as you're getting to know yourself, really learning how to love everything about yourself, you know.
Yes.
Sometimes we look at ourselves and we're like, ah, you know, like, oh, you know, I have this role here, or you know,
Flabby parts.
what?
Yes.
But like really learning to just love all of those imperfections about yourself. Because again, you're not perfect. I'm not perfect. And just really loving your imperfect self is is the key to self-love, you know. And then when you authentically love yourself, you can share yourself with others. And then
Mhm.
it's like that worry or care of what other people think about you
Yes.
slowly starts to fade away.
You know, the other day I was seriously, and I'm inspired because she's on my lap right now, but I was seriously thinking about writing a post along the lines of what my cat taught me. Because my cat, you cannot see her, but she's down here.
Mhm.
My cat taught me she is always herself. She doesn't care if I like her or not. She is mischievous when she feels like it, and she can be very cuddly and kind when I need it. But she's
Mhm.
all of those things, and she never thinks, what if my mommy stops loving me? Or what if I never get out of well, no, I never punish her or that much, actually, but she never wonders about any of these things. She's just always completely herself. And some days that's very loving, some days it's just uber bitch, and I can admire that because she never thinks, am I good enough, do I need to work a little bit harder. She's just completely, I'm a cat and this is who I am, and I don't even think that she thinks about it. She just
Yeah.
is.
Yes. Yeah. I think as humans too, we can reach that, you know.
Yes, but
We
it's
can
because
definitely.
we have more brain and we do more thinking that we start thinking ourselves into problems. She never thinks about any of these things that we've talked about today. She just is who she is. She acts like a cat. She is like a cat. She claws like a cat. She eats like a cat. She sleeps like a cat. She poops like a cat. She's a cat. That's it. And
Yes.
it's because we are evolved that we make things harder than they need to be and sometimes needlessly complex.
Yes. Yeah. It's more about simplifying.
Yes.
The word simplifying comes to mind. Like, how can you simplify your thoughts? How can you simplify your
Or
life?
go, I think, because even if she does something that she's not supposed to be doing, and I give her a stern talking to, or sometimes even a pat on her ass when she's somewhere where she's not supposed to be, it's not that next time she thinks, oh, last time I got a pat on my ass. No, she just does whatever she wants to. So she also doesn't stay stuck in stuff, right? She doesn't
Right.
stay stuck
Yeah.
in consequences or thinking about, oh, maybe this has the same consequence next time. No, she just does it when she feels like.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, that's crazy because that it just makes me think of, like, even myself, where I've done things where, like, maybe I've gotten scolded or yelled at or whatever you want to call it. And then it does make me think, like, maybe the next time I go to do this, what if that same consequence happens, right? So, like, I guess as a human being, we think more about, like, oh my gosh, this could happen again that
Yeah,
exact same way. Um, but it
will
might not.
fire. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but also at the same time, it might not.
Yes, instead of just trying stuff out and seeing where you end up. For
Right.
a lot of reasons, a lot of us find that to be very scary.
Yes,
Just
it
doing.
is. Yeah, it is. It's trusting the universe, trusting God, whatever you want to look
Yeah,
at it
and
as.
letting go, trusting and letting go and surrendering. I think those are the key words in this whole process. And they are the most difficult things for humans to learn while we do this instinctively when we are a baby. As a baby, we trust in our mother. We trust in our parents to take care of us. We trust that we will get food when we cry and we are hungry, and we surrender to being helpless and being carried around and fed and changed and whatever.
Right.
So we know how to do this. We do this instinctively when we are born. It's and I think we were always perfect. Let's say that first. But I think around 4 things change. So when we go to school. Before
Mhm.
that, we just are. We are ourselves, and we have imaginary friends, and we have a vivid imagination, and we put our finger up our nose or sit with our legs wide as a girl without
Right.
caring that you're wearing a skirt. You are. You're natural, you're authentic. And it's, I think, when we go to school where things start to go south, where we are being taught etiquette and social norms and about how things are supposed to be working or doing or acting or whatever. And we are trying to sort of, I see it more as a factory. Individual children go in and a sort of sausage comes out with all of the same types of children.
Right. Yeah, it's like, well, we're all taught to be the same, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And that also plays a big part in the people pleasing because uh, everywhere we look, we are being taught to think in the same way, to learn the same types of facts, and to choose one thing, to be really good at one thing, to find a partner, to get married, to have children, to have a house, the ideal of how things are supposed to be. And I think that plays a very big part in the people pleasing also.
Yes, it does. It does. And it also, yeah, because then it plays the big part in losing ourselves and really needing to relearn those things that we as a child before we went to school and started learning all these things, you know, what were the things that actually we enjoyed?
Yes.
What are
What
the things that,
natural to us.
yeah, right. Who was our authentic self, you
Yes.
know?
Yes.
So a lot of it is going back to childhood and really at least bringing up those feelings, even if you can't like remember exactly what it was like or what the things were that you enjoyed as a child, you know. Just,
Exactly.
you know, your body doesn't forget the feeling. Yeah.
No, in a way, I always find it very sad because we sort of have to relearn how to be ourselves.
Yeah.
We unlearned how to be ourselves, and now we had to relearn how to be ourselves. We have to relearn the things that came natural to us in the first part of our lives.
Right. Right. And we
Yeah.
also have to learn that it's okay to be ourselves.
Yes, for sure. Because for a variety of reasons, for a long time, we've probably learned that it's not okay to be ourselves.
Right. Yeah. For, gosh, for centuries, it's been
So it
not
feels
okay to be
very
yourself.
counterintuitive to start being yourself. And a lot of people think that's selfish,
Mhm.
egoistical.
Right. Yeah. That's the big, dirty word, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Loving yourself, taking care of yourself. It's seen as a narcissistic, even. That's also one of the popular terms at the moment. When I think about myself, I'm being a narcissist. And I think, no.
Yeah. No, I'm taking care of myself so then I can take care of you.
Yes,
No?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that always pissed me off so bad about the whole like selfish thing. And I fell prey to that too when I first started on the journey of self-love, where I was like, oh, I really want to take this day off of work and like just spend
Mm.
it with myself and do all the things that I want to do. But Joe, Sally, whoever wants me to do this while I'm off, you know, or mom and dad want me to come visit them while I'm off. And, you know, it took me years to get to the point where I'm like, no, I love you. I know I haven't seen you in a long time, but I need to focus on me and do what I want to do for myself right now. And I do think that people in my life now are finally used to that because
Good.
I've preached to them over the years that, like, you know, on my self love journey, I actually really enjoy myself. Like I really love being with me and
Yeah.
I really value my alone time. So everybody in my life now knows that. So it's like, okay, well, Cheryl has a day off, so you're not going to see her today because she's going to go take care of herself and do her thing, you know.
I can have the most wonderful, ridiculous, amazing conversations with myself, or I crack myself up. So
Yeah,
sometimes I think if people could listen into my internal thought conversations, they would think, oh, she's crazy.
same. Here.
Right. So there are a lot of misconceptions around well, self-love, self-care, narcissism, egoism, and all of those terms. So I hope we managed to clear some of them up, at least for you guys here today. I can also imagine that you've been loving this conversation, and it would mean the world to me if you could show your love, your appreciation by just liking this episode, by leaving a comment telling us what is your biggest insight or your biggest takeaway from what we have been talking about this evening. I would love to know. So leave a comment behind. And if you really, really loved it, then it would mean the world to me if you could share this episode with your tribe, because you know people who need to hear this talk, and you might not be aware of it, or you might be aware of it, but you would be doing them a really big service by sharing this talk. So thank you. I can also imagine that you think, I want to talk to Cheryl. Where can I find Cheryl? So, Cheryl, where can people find you?
You can find me mostly on social media. So on Facebook, I am Divinity in Motion with Cheryl the Healing Dancer. I know that's a big
I'll
mouthful.
make sure the links are in the show notes, so
Yeah.
don't worry.
Yes. Or on Instagram, it's at Divinity In Motion 5678.
Perfect. I'll make sure that both of these links are included in the show notes, who are usually below the video, but could also be to the sides or above, depending on what platform you're catching this video on. And I've really loved this conversation. I think it's a very important conversation for a large part because of the societal expectations and the things that have been handed down from generation to generation, but also the time we are living in right now and the shifts that are being made, and the energy right now, especially for people like you and me, is the energy of liberation, where we need to free ourselves from the shackles of the past so that we can step into the serving role that we are meant to be fulfilling. And this is critical. What we've been talking about today is critical
Yes.
to that.
Yes. It's time for us to break free from the people pleasing.
Yes, and to start living our lives the
Yes.
way
For
we
ourselves.
want to live it,
Exactly.
being completely ourselves without apology,
Yes. I love that.
right? Yes. So thank you, Cheryl, very much for being here today, for talking about this, for sharing your wisdom and just being awesome. And also thank you, watchers, listeners, viewers, for being here, for listening to this interview, for showing your love, for showing your support, and for always showing up for every episode. I love you guys and I appreciate you very much.
Thank you.
I wish everybody a really great rest of your day, and I hope to catch you again next week in the next episode. For right now, have an amazing rest of your day and talk soon.